You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
CYTV
Here on the Daily Signal.
Well, there aren't many images that are just painful to watch again and again and again. Most of them occur when you're watching The Office. Like Michael Scott does something really stupid, and it just kind of hurts on the inside. It's kind of a secondhand embarrassment thing, which actually, I don't know if this is as common maybe as I think it is. Allison, producer Allison out there, do you ever get secondhand embarrassment watching things like The Office?
Oh, all the time.
All the time. Producer Nick, secondhand embarrassment, does it come? You have to like shut it off. Hakeem Jeffries has decided to claim the trophy for the ultimate cringe factor right now because the leftist media is desperately trying, and I just mean trying with their heart, soul, and mind to pull up from the disastrous Joe Biden double bubble cover-up in which they promised the corpse was not rotting, and now they're trying to promise that they were the ones duped. See, they're just as much a victim as you are. Well, the House and Senate Democrats, the leadership, Hakeem Jeffries, the awkward, weird love child of Pelosi and Obama because he's like a carbon copy of the two of them mixed together. He decided today to try to sort of deflect the question that a lot of Americans have been asking now, even the left is asking them. And the secondhand embarrassment I get from this clip, I feel like it will haunt me forever.
Given the new allegations in Jake Tapper's book, do you have any concerns with President Biden's age or decline, and was there a cover-up by the Democratic Party?
We're not looking backward. We're going to continue to look forward. Certainly, I think President Biden made the decision not to seek re-election. It's a decision that House Democrats strongly supported.
Was he dead? Well, I think Biden made the decision. Okay, so, I mean, now I guess what the question is, what was it, suicide? what are you doing? It hurts. I mean, look. So there's a photo from Getty that we ended up using for the thumbnail of the show of him calling on that reporter, or the next reporter after that question. The man is so depressed. He got hit by Wolf Blitzer over on CNN. He gave the same question. We're looking forward. It's the same line old Chucky Schumer gave. And it isn't going well at all.
Hand was up.
You said in June of last year, in my meetings with President.
Now, look, he said June of last year. Chuck's face immediately constipation hits. I mean, it's rough. I mean, Blip draws in. Looks like he just sucked 4 lemons right off the tree.
Biden, I found him being command and impressive and wielding influence to make progress on key priorities. But in that same month, Biden apparently did not even recognize George Clooney at a fundraiser. Were you being straight with the American public?
Look, we're just looking forward.
Oh, we're just looking forward, yes. Excuse me, sir. I happen to notice you've pooped your pants. Do you smell the pants? And be like, well, actually, I'm really wearing my favorite shirt, and no one has complimented my shirt yet. The odor is probably just a cheap fake. No one noticed the messed pants that I am wearing. Seems to be the Democrat strategy, and inadvertently, they have now revealed, now that Jake Tapper's trying to claim they were the dupers, not I, also one of the dupers. It's really, really rough watching every single Democrat now try a different line. So I guess the Jen Psaki press secretary, Gretchen Whitmer, the governor of Michigan, former Biden campaign chair, saying, well, I was too busy to notice. That's the new line. I was too busy. I never even saw Biden. After all, no one in the country saw Biden.
Another topic, and that is my colleague's book with Alex Thompson on President Biden's physical and cognitive decline during his time in the White House. You were a co-chair of the Biden-Harris campaign.
Notice the CNN terminology now. The physical and mental decline. The language has shifted.
Stuck with Biden until he dropped out of the race. Given your position in the campaign, what...
Also, congratulations to Gretchen Whitmer for looking like a Cruella de Vil after rehab.
What signs of decline did you notice?
I've not read the book. I can tell you this, that as the book reports, cabinet members didn't have access. That tells you that, as a governor at a state, halfway across the country who was working her tail off, 160 stops on a bus tour that I headlined through.
I love it. I was too busy recording lesbian Dorito communion videos to notice that the president hadn't stood on 2 feet since March of last year. And then while she's saying all of this, that she hadn't met Biden, and she does say that I hadn't even seen him in ages. CNN's photo, for those who are listening on the podcast and radio, CNN is showing Getty image photos of Gretchen Whitmer and Biden speaking together. That's the move. That's the move. It's fantastic. And the media doesn't really know what they're doing with this either. Again, we are now multiple days into a self-made scandal, which is, again, one of the most incredible things I have ever seen. Just this constant reiteration. MSNBC, all right, they're trying to float all of these individuals, trying to move past this Biden thing. Oh, it doesn't matter. We're also like, we're Chuck Schumer. We're looking forward. Meanwhile, they were hosting, I don't know how to describe how some of these individuals look. Molly Jong Fast, who was claiming just a year ago how terrible it was to question the mental state of anyone, especially the president.
Norms are important, right? The reason we're so far along here is because norms have not been followed. I would say I don't think that her is a good faith actor, and I think that 345 pages of that show that. I mean, he's not in a...
So again, when Robert Hur came out in front of the country and said, I interviewed the president for 4 hours. The dude could not remember when his son passed away. The left came out full force and said, well, even if he had evidence, he's not a good faith actor. And now we've come to the core part of why the Democrats have fallen apart and why they were the ones who let us know. The reason the Democrats have completely eviscerated themselves, falling on their own sword, is because they truly believed deep down, they would always control the information. That they could get out in front of the country and they could say whatever they wanted. Hakeem Jeffries could get out and say, well, we're looking forward. And Chuck Schumer could get out there and say the economy was wonderful. And you could have all of these countervailing narratives. And the media would carry the water. And as long as Americans only had that media to go to, as long as they only had that media to go to, then the left was fine. They would just continue getting in power. And then when Americans started turning away, the media lies got more desperate. And when that desperation became so obvious to the American people, the amount of lying that took place was so constant, was so grandiose. You know, you had Karine Jean-Pierre getting out in front of the media and going, oh, Biden's not just totally fine and not suffering from a mental collapse. He's running circles around us, which is so beyond the scope of believability. That you have an entire country that has left them behind. Now the leftist media is so desperate to get those Americans back, they're turning on the Democrats, and the House Democrats have no idea what to do. There is no single focus within the Democrat Party right now. Every single senator, from Senator Cory Booker to Senator Chris Murphy to Senator Chuck Schumer, they're all going in totally different directions. The House is even worse. We're going to get to that in just a second. You have AOC in like a boxing match with Tom Homan of ICE. You have Ayanna Pressley going back to the reparations routine. Rashida Tlaib is crying about Palestinians. Ilhan Omar is like taking out her earrings to go toe-to-toe with Marjorie Taylor Greene. It's one of the most incredible times in the history of the House Democrats. Unless they tell you, because now they're actually trying to run around and go, wow, how are we all duped? I mean, this is incredible.
What happened here? Yeah, we're all trying to find the guy who did this and give him a spanking.
That's why no one's listening to Jake Tapper through all of this. People are buying the book because it's incredible to read the paragraph where George Clooney was insulted that Biden didn't remember who he was. You had Jill Biden running the country by fiat, and Axios and CNN, who openly covered for them, going, man, I just can't believe that the president's totally not around. We don't even know what's going on. Amazing stuff. It's wonderful. It is truly wonderful. Well, this kind of failure does spill over into other areas. It's not just Biden. So they're trying this with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And this all brings us down to Sebastian Gorka, who, of course, now is working in the administration. He's a phenomenal guy. And he went toe-to-toe with Dasha Burns of Politico today. But for that's going to be on the live stream. Radio crew will catch you in just a second. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. So Sebastian Gorka, now working with the administration, went toe-to-toe with Dasha Burns of Politico earlier today. And this was all about Kilmar Abrego Garcia. And so, again, just in the discussion as to who the Trump administration's Department of Justice is targeting, in that discussion alone, in that particular instance, right now, what we are in the middle of witnessing is a media who doesn't even know what countervailing narratives to try to protest, what hills to die on, none of that idea. The Department of Justice, in the meantime, is just going after illegal immigrants, terrorist groups. They're going through a lot of the proper channels to do this, and the left doesn't even know how to combat it. So Dasha Burns tries a very old routine about Abrego Garcia today, and it doesn't go well at all because Gorka, who is a very, very experienced media guy, cuts right through it real quick.
A member of Al-Qaeda. If you're a member of Al-Qaeda, you're a terrorist.
How do you know if that they're members of these gangs? What I'm saying
is... You mean the tattoos MS-13 on their knuckles doesn't, that doesn't help it?
Those...
Do you have tattoos of Al-Qaeda?
The tattoo did not say MS-13. I don't want to get into that.
Oh, of course it does. It's just accidents. The four symbols represent the letters MS. See, this is why...
So she's screwed up and she knows it. She wants to move on as quickly as possible because she's going to trot out the line, oh, that MS-13 wasn't on there. That's a disinformation. No one has claimed that the letters themselves are there, but that it's common gang knowledge. Gorka, however, is sharing the stage with her. Politico, this isn't some interview that CNN can cut away from. She stepped in crap. Now he's going to show it to the crowd.
Politico is a joke. This is why you are gutter press and fake news. That those four symbols that just happen to comport with the letters MS and the numbers 13 don't, in this case, represent MS-13. You're sitting here live defending a member of MS-13. That's why I regret coming here. Because this isn't journalism. This is protecting those who hate America. Shame on you. We are saving lives.
Sir.
And she's trying to, she goes on like this for another minute and a half, rightfully so, because she won't just offer up the point and say, you know what, you're right, the symbology is in fact on his knuckles. And she doesn't. She says, well, no, that's not actually on. She tries to die on this hill because, again, there's this idea with the left that if they just stick to the talking points, then Americans will get bored or they'll stop caring or like something worse will happen that'll distract Americans. That hasn't happened. That hasn't happened. As we're going to talk about later, one of the key reasons that has not happened is because the Trump administration has basically solved a lot of the trade war problems that American voters weren't a fan of in some parts of the country. And now you even have Axios coming to the table and admitting, yeah, a lot of those recession fears and predictions of market crash, yeah, that was overblown. So what do they have left? Well, nothing. And I do mean nothing. There's not anything that you can latch onto now to cover up the stench of rotting failure over on the left. So they're going to run through the exact same mistakes. Over on The View, the same thing. They're going to make all of this hay about people from South Africa being allowed to come to the United States. They cannot handle it. And it's just going to end in the exact same fashion.
For me, you know, I think one thing, having Kristi Noem be in charge of Homeland Security in and of itself is an insult. It's just an insult. And I think something that we're not talking about is enough about is what Donald Trump did on Monday is that the Trump administration allowed in 59 white South African refugees into this country, claiming that they were fleeing racial discrimination and land appropriation. So the South African president has been actively, denying that and denying that.
She goes on to say that, well, they're not real refugees. Same mistakes. Over and over and over. We got to catch the radio crew back from commercial. Stick around. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Same strategies, different day. Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. It's time to talk about the squad, SCOTUS, and of course, shenanigans. So the lessons the left didn't learn at all, and they're going to run smack into comes in a couple of interesting new fun flavors, but, the same great taste. And that rests in that the old guard of the Democrats, who tried the same strategy over and over, well, they're all dying because they're, old. And it turns out that the new crew that's coming in, the bench getting ready to hop out onto the field, they're awful. I mean, not awful as in like they're morally awful. Of course, we know that. They are insanely incompetent. Even the most competent among them cannot help but make the same grave mistakes, not just from the left-wing economic positions, not just from the left-wing legal positions, but the cultural positions that Americans are absolutely tired of and done with. Point number one, Ayanna Pressley, great member of the squad. By great, of course, I mean she's just like all the other members of the squad. She has decided that now is the time, given the strong footing of the Democrat Party, with all of the momentum in Hakeem Jeffries' Democrat House, the same kind of momentum in which Tanadar wears a wig and yells about Trump like Napoleon Dynamite. That kind of momentum means it's time to talk about reparations
and discrimination against Black people. We are in a moment of anti-Blackness on steroids, and we refuse to be silent. We will not back down in our pursuit of racial justice. The antidote to anti-Blackness is to be pro-Black, and we will do it unapologetically. The United States government owes us a debt, and we need reparations now.
Yes. Well, I believe it or not, I looked all over the internet for a slower version of that clip, and everyone just wants to have the auctioneer, Ayanna Pressley, talking about, again, well, America owes us reparations right now. Right now they owe us reparations. Okay, good luck with this. Of course, I could tear apart the idea of why it's incredibly stupid and no one's going to buy it and it's a waste of their time, our time, everyone's time. No, go ahead, run with this. Run with this straight into the midterms. Is that what the entire Democrat House is focused on? Nope. For the first time in the history of the House of Representatives, Republicans are all currently doing the same thing. It's unreal. Now, are they fighting amongst themselves? A little bit, but they're all fighting amongst themselves about the same thing. Democrats are currently pulling in about 15 different directions. Is Rashida Tlaib talking about reparations? No, she's busy crying about Palestine. Ah, yes, there's the move.
I pray that the ongoing Nakba against the Palestinians will end. And one day they will be free.
I've never seen her cry like that for the victims of natural disasters here in the country, or the victims of illegal immigrant crime, or, victims of the California or the Maui wildfires, or the plane crashes or transportation disasters or anything like that.
Mr. Speaker, I want to talk about something that's happening right here in our backyard in regards to the Congressional Mamas Caucus, though.
So she wasn't even up there to talk about that. I love it so much.
I'm sorry, I can't go on. That's okay. Your tears say more than real evidence ever could.
I mean, the Congress is just a Simpsons clip after another Simpsons clip. I've never seen anything so hilarious. Oh, yes, I have. Here's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who decides to, again, use the committees, like all of the Democrat House members and a lot of Republican House members are using committees right now. There are cameras in the room, so instead of asking questions to people there to testify, to witnesses, instead of having a dialogue and actually, doing what committees are supposed to do, representatives in the House are just using the time to talk directly to the cameras. And this has been something that people like yours truly have been calling out in the media for the last couple of months. And I've been told to my face, no, they're not. There are no Democrats talking to the cameras in these committees. That's ridiculous. Right-wing conspiracy. Yeah, because that one always works out. So, of course, here's Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez openly admitting exactly that.
There are 13.7 million Americans on the other side of that screen right there. Hello? Hello. I'm talking to you because I work for you. And they deserve to see what is happening here. Because there are plenty of districts, including Republican ones, where 25% of your constituents are on Medicaid.
By the way, she's pulling that number out of her butt. There are districts where this is the number in your district. Okay. Also, the cameras are in there. See, the thing is that whether or not she's talking to me or not, I still see what's going on in there. I'm not Helen Keller. No one has to come up and like press the symbols into my hand for me to know what's going on in the room. By the camera simply being there, I'm able to observe what's going on. I don't need her to talk to me. Like, otherwise, I'm going to think that this is some theater production. Well, I mean, it is a theater production.
40% of your constituents are on Medicaid. And yes, I am.
Will the gentlelady yield?
I am talking to them, and I will not yield because it was a terribly disrespectful comment. And I will not yield to disrespectful men. Thank you very much.
So then what you see is her pressing the button. She then yields. It's like, will you yield? In essence, that's the Robert Rules of Order saying, are you done? Your time's up. And she's like, I will not yield. I now yield my time. Thank you. Oh, I love it. Same old mistakes. Slightly new coat of paint. And some of the same old mistakes are not going to be the same old mistakes for much longer. This brings us to the Supreme Court of the United States. The Supreme Court of the United States is currently discussing the birthright citizenship part of the 14th Amendment. And while, again, currently chasing rabbits, the left is saying how very deeply important it is for yada yada birthright citizenship stuff. That's not really why this particular case is important. It's not. And that's not a red herring either. The reason that this case is important is because right now, as we have been discussing since the beginning of the second Trump administration, federal judges in random districts around the country, I'm not just talking about DC or New York or even Los Angeles or San Francisco, who think they're the most important things on God's green earth. I'm talking about random district judges in like New Hampshire and like Southern Illinois, like places that do not impact the rest of the country every dang day. Federal judges from these district courts are issuing these grand sweeping injunctions to halt, to freeze, to stay the President of the United States administration from running the executive agency orders and exercising Article 2 authority of the Constitution under the current interpretation by the Supreme Court. And what's being argued right now, and we're hearing through these audio arguments inside the Supreme Court, which thank God there are no cameras inside, or we would get a lot of the House stuff in committees that we would be seeing right now in the Supreme Court, more than we already are. And you're actually seeing an argument be carried out. I told you this was going to happen, for the record. I did say we were getting to the point where justices are starting to get annoyed with all of these little injunctions. SCOTUS is starting to debate whether or not these federal district judges are, in fact, going to be allowed to just issue their own legislative orders and priorities as would be king. Here is Ketanji Brown Jackson, the SCOTUS justice who doesn't know what a woman is, saying that what we really need is district judges who can do just whatever they want, all the time, whenever.
I would think we'd want the system to move as quickly as possible to reach the merits of the issue and maybe have this court decide whether or not the government is entitled to do this under the law.
There you go. The Supreme Court openly acknowledging, by the way, Amy Coney Barrett does this, Clarence Thomas does this, Roberts does this. We are getting ready to see SCOTUS make it very clear what federal district judges can and can't do. Unfortunately for literate people, Ketanji Brown Jackson thinks that this means federal judges should just have carte blanche to do whatever they want.
Wouldn't having universal injunctions actually facilitate that? It seems to me that when the government is completely enjoined from doing the thing it wants to do, it moves quickly to appeal that, to get it to the Supreme Court, and that's actually what we would want.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. Radio crew will catch you in just a few minutes back with Jerry Lopez for Awful Tweets. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. So Ketanji's argument here is that if federal judges are allowed to freeze anything they want all over the place all the time, then that means it will get resolved faster. What? What?
What I worry about is similar to what Justice Kagan points out, is that if the government is saying no lower court can completely enjoin it, It actually means that the government just keeps on doing the purportedly unlawful thing, and it delays the ability for this court to reach the underlying issue.
By the way, that's not true at all. If a court can't issue a massive injunction, then it goes up to the appellate court level. And the Supreme Court, by the way, can intervene at any time. Can drop down a hold or a stay or anything like that. That's allowed. So the reason that this is so funny is Ketanji is saying, oh, this can't happen. She was just part of a middle of the night order to halt the Trump administration from doing something. The memory of a goldfish and half the intelligence. All right, Amy Coney Barrett, speaking of garbage takes, Amy Coney Barrett has decided to drop on in with some really, really rough takes from her oral argument session today.
Opinions and judgments here. Did I understand you correctly to tell Justice Kagan that the government wanted to reserve its right to maybe not follow a Second Circuit precedent, say, in New York, because you might disagree with the opinion?
Our general practice is to respect those precedents, but there are circumstances when it is not a categorical practice. It is, and that is not
this administration's practice, or the.
Oh, okay. So what she's saying is, so you just don't want to follow the orders of lower courts? And he says, that's not what we're saying. We do try to follow court orders, but there are times when the courts issue orders that are outside of its constitutional authority. So if the president of the United States, for example, is suggesting that he wants to respond to a Houthi missile strike by firing a missile into Houthi territory, then he has the ability to do that. He's the president of the United States. That is his constitutional authority. Just carte blanche. There is nothing that a district judge from New Hampshire can say about it. This is very, very basic law. But again, Amy Coney Barrett thinks that all text interpretation is fluid.
The longstanding practice of the federal government. And I'm not talking about in the Fourth Circuit, are you going to respect a Second Circuit? I'm talking about within the Second Circuit. And can you say, is that this administration's practice or a longstanding one?
As I understand it, longstanding policy of the Department of Justice. Yes, that we generally, as it was phrased to me, generally respect circuit precedent, but not necessarily in every case. And some examples might be a situation where we're litigating to try and get that circuit precedent overruled and so forth.
Well, okay, so I'm not talking about a situation in which, you know, the Second Circuit has a case from 1955 and you think it's time for it to be challenged. That's
not what he was saying either. She's making things up. It's hilarious.
Not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in this kind of situation. I'm talking about this week, the Second Circuit holds that the executive order is unconstitutional, and then what do you do the next day or the next week?
Generally, we follow those.
So you're still saying generally?
Yes.
And you?
Yes, because there are some cases in which the court does not have the authority to rule an executive order is unconstitutional. Court authority does in fact end in certain places. The founders were very clear about that. We'll be back in a second with some awful tweets, and we'll play the Clarence Thomas clip just in a bit because you got to hear that one. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
Awful tweets, the ones that no one ever deletes. Awful tweets on the Tony Kinnett Show.
On 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. It's good to be joined by the one, the only, Jerry Lopez, Indie Spanglish over on X. Jerry, how's it going, man?
Man, it's going great. Once again, my favorite day of the week is here. I'm ready to get after it, Tony.
We've got a lot of goodness to get to. And by goodness, I mean the worst garbage the internet has ever coughed up. So awful tweets, as Jerry very well knows. You guys send us the worst social media posts, articles, all of it. And then we suffer on air in front of God's creation just for your macabre entertainment. Jerry, you ready to go?
I'm ready to go.
This first one is from Representative Debbie Dingell. So I mentioned earlier, the left has no idea what they're doing. They're just struggling. So townhall.com caught Representative Debbie Dingell just snoozing. I mean, just full on out cold, head back, just. And so the internet made fun of her. And this is how she responded. This is how she said, well, this is why I was sleeping in committee. I've been up for 31 hours straight, fighting Republicans, trying to gut Medicaid. I closed my eyes to think about an America where everyone has access to quality, affordable health care. Wow, Jerry, wow.
Yeah, so we all know the number one thing stolen from most employers is company time, and here's a great example of that, right? So really, it could be one of two things, right? One, she is trying out to be Sleepy Dwarf and Snow White 2, Cocaine Mitch's comeback, or she is literally just passed out at work. I mean, she is slumped. It's pretty funny. If you haven't seen it, go find it. But to say that she was, I was tired from, I mean, come on. She looked drunk.
I do love how she could just say, like, hey, you know what, sleep happens. We've all fallen asleep in class. We've all fallen asleep at office jobs. Again, that kind of transparency, that's cool. Whenever you're in a scandal like this, by the way, just brushing it off is always the best case. Always the best case. But going, I was closing my eyes to dream of America. Oh, amazing.
She looked like she got hypnotized like the guy from Office Space.
Dude, she looked like she got hit with a Louisville Slugger, is what it looks like. All right, this next one is from House Republicans. Not even the Republicans are safe from awful tweets. They tweeted 2 days ago. Again, Americans are really annoyed with some of the Republicans for not doing a whole lot. They said, we need to get Americans off the sidelines.
Yeah, I don't think we're the ones on the sidelines, Tony. I mean, Americans, if you're working 40 hours a week, you work a lot more than members of Congress. I mean, they work less than half the year, I believe. So let's be honest. They've done a whole lot of nothing. They need to get off the sidelines and get to doing their freaking job.
Hey, Jerry, do you know why they tweeted this on May 13th, a Tuesday?
Why is that?
Because they just got back from a 4-day weekend.
I didn't have one. Did you have one?
No, of course not. No. Absolutely not. All right, this next one, I teased this earlier in the show. Ilhan Omar and Marjorie Taylor Greene, they took off the earrings and they went fighting today. So Ilhan Omar is upset because it looks like there's a chance that President Trump might, in fact, pardon from the federal level, not the state level, but pardon federal charges for Derek Chauvin, the officer who, again, was accused of killing George Floyd in that entire situation. So Ilhan Omar is very angry about it. She says, it's absolutely vile. Derek Chauvin murdered George Floyd in a modern day lynching, blah, 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 blah. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, she hops in and says, busy day fighting Democrats. First, Mike Lawler, who's trying to destroy Trump's agenda, and now illegal alien Ilhan Omar of Somalia. Ilhan, you know what's vile? Having sex with and marrying your brother. Oh, snap. Well, Ilhan Omar, she's back. Well, Ilhan Omar, she's ready, man.
I wasn't ready, Tony. I wasn't ready for that. These are sitting members of Congress literally roasting each other online for our pleasure. We live in the best timeline right now.
It's a wonderful time to be alive. Well, Ilhan Omar, she claps back, sort of. She says, I'm not sure if the conspiracy theories have rotted your brain or Pornhub, but please spare us your vile fantasies and juvenile insults. And then the murderer you defend will remain in jail, and I will continue to be an American citizen elected by more voters into Congress than corrupt elected official like you. What?
I mean, the fact that she even referenced a company like that is crazy. See, I guess Ilhan has her preferences. I bet you can look up Homemade Brother.
We're going to move right along to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Goodness. So, again, after the 3 congressmen and women decided to try to storm an ICE facility without following federal law.
Mayor.
That's right. And, of course, the Democratic mayor. He didn't have any authority to be here in the first place. AOC has decided to write her own laws and says members of Congress have legal authority to enter ICE and Border Patrol facilities. Agencies are legally required to allow them entry. And then she goes on to say that, maybe that's why ICE agents are hiding their faces, because they're who should be facing consequences. What do you think?
Yeah, if she had that legal authority, then why'd she stay in a parking lot just a couple years ago crying out offense? Like, she could have just walked in then, right? She could have just walked in then. So even she doesn't think she has that authority. But I did a little bit of research. They are authorized to go in, but it's not on the spot whenever you want. You have to coordinate these things. So she's out of her mind.
That's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, she did cry in the parking lot because, yes, you do have to give advanced notice. I don't know if you know this, Jerry, but prisons are not like rosy, wonderful places. It's not the lobby of your local Hilton. I don't think so. They kind of need to make sure things are secure, but alas, we do have to move on. This one's about the Pope. You know, good old Pope tweet here. It's from Brad. Today, a 69-year-old man known as Robert, his entire life, walked out on a balcony and self-identified as Leo. The entire world now calls him Leo without question. See how easy it is to accept and respect what an individual identifies as?
Yeah, I can go right now and change my name to Tony. That doesn't make me a woman. Do not try to put these things in the same category. They're not. He went in as a man. He's still a man. He just identifies under a different name. We're not talking about gender. Please, we cannot even. These are adults that we share air with.
Well, I mean, I don't know if everyone's getting the same amount of oxygen to the brain, to be very fair here. The next one's from Isaiah, who's running for office in Texas. Just a real swell guy. He types this in all caps, so he's shouting this. Trump is jailing his political opponents because he destroyed the economy and desperately wants to distract from that. 6 exclamation points.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw the latest numbers. CNN just literally had to eat crow and talk about inflation is the lowest it's been since 2021. I mean, everything looks great. He's winning on the tariff front. We don't want any distraction. Please pay attention to what's going on right now. And I screamed that in all caps with 7 exclamation points.
Also, who is Trump? What political opponents is Trump jailing? Like, what are we talking about here? I don't.
Well, that's the part that gets me. They want to talk about dictator. My family's from Cuba, bro. We don't throw that word around. He hasn't done any of this stuff. If anything, the Democrats have acted like dictators, trying to lock him up and not even allow him to be on the ballot.
This next one is from the Human Rights Campaign. I talked about this one, I think, with Kurt Schlichter a little bit yesterday, but couldn't refuse getting your take on it here. So it's this dude in a dress, and he says, isn't it interesting to hear about how trans men, or whatever they want to call them, the dudes in skirts, are too strong for sports, but too weak for the military? Ah, big brain moment, he thinks.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's just be honest. We're not talking about, being too strong for sports. That's going against. Listen, if we could have our trans women, I don't know. I guess if trans women were women, we wouldn't have to say trans. We'd just say women are women, but that's a whole different conversation. But if we just had dudes in dresses beat up the female military members of the other people, I bet they wouldn't agree with that either. It's completely ridiculous. How about this? If you're an active duty soldier, identify as a female. They do less push-ups and more sit-ups, and then you're good on your PT test and re-identify. It's completely dumb. Mental illness needs to be looked at.
Well, I mean, they were before we had Secretary of Defense Hegseth swoop right in. God bless him. All right, moving right along. This is our last one's a Blue Sky post. Because Blue Sky always serves up the best low IQ takes. It's Joy Reid, here to talk about refugees. Oh, boy. So it's not about expelling criminals after all. Just 7-year-olds with cancer so we can make room for white South Africans. Got it. Have you ever smoked enough meth to understand something like this?
No, but I know why she likes refugees, because her forehead is immigrating to her back. Have you seen her hairline? It is completely depleted at this point. Like, there's at least 7 Cubans drafting across that forehead. No, listen, it's funny when all of a sudden race doesn't matter until it's a bunch of white guys. And as a Latino, I'm not in this fight. It doesn't take long to look around. Did you see these people get off the plane? I will take those people all day. You're getting off the plane with U.S. flags, and you're happy to be in this country. You're not sneaking across the border waving the flag of Mexico. That's not somebody wants to be here.
Jerry Lopez, awful tweets. Thanks for another phenomenal week, dude. Appreciate it.
Definitely. See you next week.
Radio crew will be back soon. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. There was one thing I wanted to show you guys that I couldn't believe happened. I had to go back and watch it again. So Robert F. Kennedy Jr., normally, of course, he is enjoying a good old-fashioned time running the Health and Human Services Department. But he was before committee a lot this week. And so showing up while Kennedy is talking about food dyes is one of the founders of Ben and Jerry's. And the old man founder of Ben and Jerry's, Ben Cohen, decided that the right move, like the best move to really showcase how sane the left is to try and attack RFK Jr. in the middle of RFK's testimony. That is one of the weirdest sentences I've ever uttered.
He supports these goals and reflects.
So first of all, there's a lady that stands up and starts yelling, you know, day ending and why. So she's like holding thinly printed photos of some sort, or maybe just sketches of her pronouns. It's hard to say.
The witness will suspend.
Right there, if you notice in the bottom right corner, the dude with no hair, but like kind of a weird like donut of white hair around it, that's the legend who started Ben and Jerry's ice cream. He's decided now is his time. Now is his moment.
And the committee will come to order. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room. Members of the audience
Here we go.
are reminded disruptions will not be tolerated.
RFK jails people with AIDS. News to me. All right, that's okay.
Congress pays
All right, here's the Ben and Jerry guy.
for bombs that kill people in Gaza. Members of the audience are reminded disruptions will not be permitted while the committee conducts its business. Capitol Police are asked to remove the individuals from the hearing room.
Now later the left tried to play this up. How could they have roughed up an old man? Oh, the inhumanity. I can't believe it. Amazing. Yeah, because again, we do in fact have the footage. I will bring up one more thing in the kind of the final segment here before we talk about Trump. We got to catch the radio crew. James Comey, former FBI director, decided that it is time to make an Instagram post that he thought was going to shape history. So we're going to catch it here in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. Be right back.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. It's good to be with you. Very, 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 very briefly, I had to pull up just one particular photo that I kind of couldn't believe was real when I saw it today. I couldn't possibly believe that there was an individual who could be that stupid. I could not believe. I couldn't believe it. But in fact, it was true. This is from James Comey, the former director of the FBI. Pull it up here and get it over to the right tweet here. He decided on Instagram today as he was walking, because he says a cool shell formation on my beach walk. And he has arranged shells. A grown man has arranged shells to form the numbers 86, 47. So again, like 86, like to get rid of, to like nix, to get out of here. 86, and then 47, likely, obviously, a reference to the president of the United States, Donald Trump. So there are a lot of people online who are suggesting, oh, this means that James Comey is calling for Trump to be assassinated because he's like 86, the 47th. I mean, you could also make the case that he's just like he wants the guy gone or to step down or be impeached. I have a different question. Why are you, as a grown man, arranging seashells on the beach into 4 numbers and then going, now this is really going to own the conservatives? I want to make this clear. That particular tweet is gayer than any Pride Month tweet in existence. This is by far a cringier tweet than any AI photo, any Hillary Clinton chilling in Cedar Rapids, than any. We now have a new winner for perhaps the lamest, not like the most awful. I mean, yeah, I of course, you know, there's questions behind it, but it's just lame tweets. Because, you know, there were people probably walking out there that just sees Comey running around and going, unless you're going to be the 8, and then the 6, and the 4. Amazing. I'm so glad. So very hinged, the left these days. Away from grown men with seashells. I cannot possibly believe it. So there is actually other stuff going on in the world, believe it or not. Other than the left completely melting down, the Trump administration is in fact finishing up its tour of the Middle East and getting massive investment deals from Saudi Arabia and Qatar and the UAE. And a lot of those deals are not entirely public yet, so I'm not going to give you the final verdict on those because you can consider it kind of responsible to hang on until I have the paper in front of me. I will say this. I have heard a lot of people suggesting in the political spheres that the Trump administration is just bequeathing all of these fancy gifts to Saudi Arabia and to Qatar and the United Arab Emirates, and like all of these deals are being signed and America's not getting anything out of them. You don't know that. The Trump administration doesn't exactly advertise it based on our knowledge of the first administration. Whenever they tie strings to things they expect the other country to do, they don't publicize that. So everyone out there is suggesting that Donald Trump is like not aware that a lot of people have criticized Qatar. Like, you do realize that whenever Trump is striking a deal, he praises whomever it is at any time. Donald Trump's never gone into a deal going, I'm going to sign a deal with this jerk who I hate, who's stinky and stupid and mean. When Trump goes to try to get a governor in the United States who's a Democrat who he doesn't like to do something, he walks into the state and goes, I actually really like Gavin or Gretchen Whitmer. They're not that bad. In fact, I think that they really want to help their people. Whenever he does that, it's not because Trump actually dearly loves that individual. He's about to sign some kind of a deal. Calm yourselves for a few seconds. In the meantime, there are actually a couple of members of the House of Representatives who have now signed, you guessed it, a letter. Woo! 17 House Republicans have written a letter to Speaker Johnson saying, get to work codifying Trump's executive orders. Finally. Now, two things can be true at once here. Number one, does Congress kind of need to, get on the ball and start trying to codify some of these executive orders? Yeah, absolutely. Number two, is it likely Congress is going to be codifying a lot of these executive orders? No, Republicans don't have a 60-seat majority in the Senate. Now, the way around this, as has been proposed by a couple of great pundits and policy guys over on the right, is to force the left to either abandon the filibuster, allowing Senate to vote on things with a 51-vote majority, like they have claimed they've wanted to all these years, or they can put forward a constitutional amendment to cement the filibuster into the Constitution forever and force the Democrats into a corner. They could do that. They could. But at the moment, Republicans are focused on cutting out all of the junk and simultaneously shoving as much junk into that big, beautiful, amazing, incredible bill, the House budgetary spending package. And a couple of quick notes on that particular spending package du jour. There are a few SALT deductions that are currently being allowed in the bill that basically for up to $30,000, you can take deductions if you're in a blue state, if your state has high taxes, which I realize is redundant because I just said blue states. But the idea that blue Republicans from these blue states should have the authority to charge you, who likely live in a red state, for those who live in blue states is absolutely ridiculous. Additionally, there are a lot of other weird provisions in this bill that are likely going to be stripped away. But rest assured, if the Trump administration does in fact get this thing through, the slim majority in the House and then the Senate, who's very grumpy about it, because again, the country is heading towards a fiscal cliff. And there is no group of Americans sizable enough to make a considerable difference on the right or the left right now that doesn't want, that's willing to cut spending effectively. The American people on the left and on the right, though many of us mourn this fact, do in fact want high spending. They say they don't want high spending. Oh yeah, I want to cut the spending right now. And then you say, okay, well, which government programs are you willing to slice off? And then it gets really quiet. Because Americans are a fan of government programs when they benefit them. That's kind of the whole selfish third world society, the selfish first world society thing in practice. A lack of hardship creates entitlement. And that is something that the American people have unfortunately been shuffling to for a long time. So why am I bringing that up? Well, there's no option here that actually does gut a massive amount of spending from this bill. That's not my condoning, the spending in the bill, but again, a little bit of realism does in fact go a long way. So on the radio side of things, we're going to be ending our programming for the evening. On the live stream, we're going to stick around because Clarence Thomas is going to bring in the haymaker. This is the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal radio crew. We'll catch you tomorrow. All right, live stream crew. A little something special here. This would be Clarence Thomas from the top rope. And it's incredible because while you have Amy Coney Barrett, who has no idea why there's constitutional authority and limits to the judicial branch, just like there is to the executive branch, and you have Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson making goofy goober claims that it would be a lot faster if federal judges just got to issue injunctions all the time whenever. Clarence Thomas, otherwise known as one of the only members on the Supreme Court who can read, he decided to swing in during the oral argument period today and absolutely carpet bomb the entire place.
General, when were the first universal injunctions used?
We believe that the best reading of that is what you said in Trump against Hawaii, which is that Wirtz in 1963 was really the first universal injunction. There's a dispute about Perkins against Lucan's Oil going back to 1940. And of course, we point to the court's opinion that reversed that universal injunction issued by the D.C. Circuit and said it's profoundly wrong. Now, if you look at the cases that the either party cite, you see a common theme. The cases that we cite, like National Treasury's Employment Union, Perkins against Lucan's Oil, Frothingham in Massachusetts against Mellon, going back to Scott against Donald, and all of those are cases where the court considered and addressed the sort of universal, in that case, statewide issue of provision of injunctive relief. So when the court has considered and addressed this, it has consistently said you have to limit the remedy to the plaintiffs who appearing in court and complaining of that remedy.
So we survived until the 1960s without universal injunctions.
That's exactly correct. And in fact, those were very limited, very rare, even in the 1960s. It really exploded in 2007 in our cert petition in Summers against Earth Island Institute. We pointed out that the Ninth Circuit had started doing this in a whole bunch of cases involving environmental claims.
So what he's saying, just as a little quick summary, is that for a long time in the United States, and by which I mean the vast, vast, vast majority of this country's history, district courts did not issue nationwide injunctions. And it wasn't until the 60s that it even happened. And at that time, in the 60s, again, there were very few cases where judges decided that they had the authority to limit the entire scope of the legislative branch or the executive branch. That's not really a thing that occurred until 2007, when all of the Al Gore environmentalists who were starting to become federal judges decided, I'm here in Kansas and I can't believe what BP is doing to the oceans. Or you'd have some fool in California deciding that someone in Kentucky wasn't being nice enough to the land that contained the Saskatchewanese mosquito. And that kind of nonsense has only grown in scope now that, as Chuck Schumer has openly bragged, more and more and more progressive judges have sat on the bench. That in and of itself is a massive, massive reason that the left has completely fallen apart. They have moved too fast and too soon. There was an idea if you were going to use federal judges to swing in and stop the Bush administration from doing the worst of the worst, that maybe you just stopped this one environmental decision. Maybe every once in a while you just stop what you consider were the worst of the Trump decisions. Again, I'm the worst in quotations because that's entirely subjective. But that wasn't good enough. And then when Trump came in the second time and said, okay, we're going to rule by the executive agency fiat, so be it. Then Chuck Schumer and all of the little progressive judges started issuing injunction after injunction. They were falling over each other to try to be the first judge to say, you can't fire employees, and hey, stop it. You can't say that mentally ill people can't serve in the military. How dare you? Well, then it became a game of injunction bingo. And now you have succinctly annoyed enough justices that in the 14th Amendment, the citizenship right in the United States, the birthright citizenship idea, that in the middle of this case, the Supreme Court is now arguing, just as some really debonair guy with a beard and glasses suggested they would do, now they're going to hash this out. And while Amy Coney Barrett's busy quibbling about people in the Trump administration that she doesn't like, because Amy Coney Barrett has no idea whatsoever of why a piece of text retains its inerrancy, retains its value. Amy Coney Barrett is a contextualist. She always has been. And that primary criticism doesn't come from me. That comes from those in the Catholic faith who are more conservative than she is and have pointed out her garbage theology is, in fact, a constant problem. Anywho, enough about the Pope's far more accurate interpretation of the inerrancy of writings of the church. It's far more important, though, when you look at the moderate like Chief Justice Roberts, who has been poked and annoyed by all of these fools over on the left, including the squad members who have wanted to open ethics investigations into them. They have moved way too far, way too quickly. And now, who they could have appealed to and said, well, hey, come on, don't you think Trump's a big, meanie orange guy? Now it doesn't look like that's going to work very well. Giving an opportunity for the Supreme Court to rule partly in favor and partly against. Trump isn't going to win this particular birthright citizenship case. It's very unlikely, but I don't think he's expecting that. I don't think his administration is expecting that. What you are likely going to see, and I'll issue a little bit of a prediction here now. I could very much be wrong, of course. I think you're going to see a 5-4 decision that rules in part and against. So in part, I think you're going to see the Supreme Court rule that the Trump administration does not have the correct interpretation and that birthright citizenship is going to be around for a while longer. I think that's going to be ruled in that way. But the 5-4 in favor is going to suggest, with Amy Coney Barrett likely siding with the liberals, I think you are going to see the Supreme Court suggest that federal district judges do not have the authority to issue nationwide injunctions on several areas, maybe up to and including everything included in Article 2. We'll have to see. We'll be back tomorrow with more fun and I'm sure more nonsense to round out the week. Have an excellent evening. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC.